Hello everyone and welcome to the 7th episode of the Racing School. Now if you haven't seen the first 6 episodes of this, you do need to go and watch them. The link will be down in the description because we're pretty much taking all of that into account for this and putting it all together. So yeah, definitely go watch those first because you do need them to understand what I'm talking about in this episode. But in this episode we are talking about how you bring all of what you've learned together and how you get around a track properly. So here we are at Spa in Belgium, one of the greatest tracks on the planet really, and this is the first lap that I've done in this car. Now I do know the track of Spa a fair bit, I wouldn't say I know it as well as something like Silverstone or something like that, but I know kind of where it goes, but I've never raced this car on it, I've never had this car on it, and this is basically the first lap that I've ever done in this car on this track. And what you'll see is not very good driving, basically. It's going to be very slow, well not very slow, but reasonably slow, kind of, making a few slight braking errors, not really pushing the car as hard as it could be pushed, not braking as late as I could brake, getting the gears wrong, all that kind of stuff happens when on the first lap. And as you see here, as we come to the end of the lap, I end up getting a 2 minutes 13. Now you'll also see a little bit of the second lap, which is also a little bit better. Still not great, but it's a little bit better, and I end up getting a 2 minutes 9. Now this is basically how you should approach every track. So you do one side a lap. You start off. You figure out where it goes. You take your time to learn the track, and then you start to make your braking points a little bit later. Turn in a little bit later. Turn in a little bit faster. And gradually bring the time down. Now, on the first couple of episodes, first 6 episodes of this, I've been talking about braking points, accelerating points, the racing line, when you change gears. Now, the perfect single corner means that you've done all of those things that we've talked about in the first 6 episodes absolutely perfectly. So you've got the braking point as late as it could be possibly done. You've got the racing line exactly how it should be. You've got everything absolutely perfect. Now, that doesn't exist. You will never ever get a perfect corner. It's impossible. Not even the top Formula 1 drivers manage to get a perfect corner. Now, a perfect lap is every single one of the corners on the lap also driven perfectly. Again, that's not possible. But your job is to get as close to perfection as you possibly can. So, as you can see here, I've done the 2 laps. I've done my first 2 decent laps, and then what happens is that you get the inevitable mistakes. As you can see here, I basically just straight line this. I go too far off, it invalidates the lap, and that's something that just generally happens. You make mistakes. You brake a little bit later every time until you get to a point where you brake too late and you make a mistake. Some of them are small mistakes like that. Some of them are bigger mistakes, as you'll see here, and cause you a bit more trouble. But they are inevitable and you shouldn't shy away from them. You should embrace mistakes. As long as you realise what you've done wrong, then that's a good thing. Mistakes should happen. You should be pushing the car more and more until you get to a point where you make a mistake. And then as soon as you've made that mistake, you don't do it again, and you've pushed the car as hard as it can be pushed. But then eventually you'll get to a point where you get a breakthrough lap. As you can see there in the top right, I had a 2 minutes 13 and then a 2 minutes 9. Then a few red markers where I had mistakes. Then I managed a 2 minutes 8, which was again on another mistake. And then you'll get a lap that you do reasonably well. You don't make any mistakes. You've gradually been building up the speed, getting to know the track more and more. And as you'll see on this lap, I managed to get a 2 minutes 6.9. So obviously that's a reasonable step to what we once had. And you get this breakthrough lap by doing all of the things in the first 6 episodes reasonably well. So you've got a good base. Those first 6 episodes give you the knowledge to do any corner or any sections of corners well. They tell you how to get around those corners properly. How you get around a track properly is just putting that into practice on all of the corners on the track. And remembering where you do it, remembering each corner, remembering how you drive on each corner, and then doing it well. So you get a decent lap. You get a lap that you're happy with that's reasonably quick, and then the idea is you should start working on your consistency. So As you can see in the top right again, I had a lot of red laps there, so a lot of laps where I was going off all the time. You know, I was pushing the car a bit too much, going off all the time, so I decided to just rein it in a little bit, not push too much. I'd go for a bit of consistency and just get used to the car, get comfortable with the track. And that's what I've done. So you can see there's a number of times in white there, one in red, but the lap time itself is quite similar. They're all around the 2:07 mark, so not quite on that ultimate 2:06.9 pace that I had, but they are comfortable laps. You know, as you can see on the screen, they don't. You know, I'm not troubling the white lines or anything like that. I'm taking it nice and comfortably while still doing a quick time, and that's what I worked on there. But then it comes to a point where you feel you should just take a break, and that's that point there. So I did a few nice consistent laps. I was quite happy, quite comfortable. I decided to go and push for a better lap time again, and I make a mistake like that. I thought, right, I've done 16 laps, I'll take a break. So after 35 minutes of driving, I took a break and then came back to it later on. Now, as you can see in the second in the top right again, the second lap that I did on this new session, I was already quicker than the best lap that I'd done before. So it's only taken me 2 laps in this new session to beat the best lap time that I did in the old session. And the reason for that is that all of the stuff that you learn in the old session, you know, that half an hour of driving, that all sinks in, and when you start up a new session, it's all fresh in your mind, and it's all sunk in, so you know what you need to do straight away, and you can just work on that from the off. And as you'll see, this lap I actually managed to get a 2:05, and that is, you know, way quicker than what I managed before, and that's the best lap that I managed over all of the sessions. And I decided to stop at that point. It's by no means the best lap that you've ever seen, but yeah, you know, I could certainly do a lot worse, but I could also do a lot better if I wanted to keep going. Now, there's a reason that I've decided not to show the full laps from any of the laps that I've showed so far, and that's because you're about to see a comparison between everything that you've just seen. So in the top left hand corner, we're going to have the first lap that I did. In the top right hand corner, we're going to have the second lap that I did. In the bottom left hand corner, we're going to have the best lap that I did from that first session. And in the bottom right hand corner, we're going to have the best lap that I did in the second session. So you're comparing the very, very first lap that I did in the top left with the absolute best lap that I did in the top bottom right. And just basically have a look at how the lines change. You know, go back, watch this multiple times. You can always do that. Put it in full screen. Look at how these lap times all change and how the laps develop as you go through. And you'll see big differences between the first lap and the second lap. You see big differences between the second lap and the best lap that I did. You know, there will be differences, and you'll be able to figure out how I develop the lap time as I go through a session. And it's basically just a case of doing all of the things in the first 6 episodes better, braking later, going around corners quicker, all that kind of stuff. Getting the right gears is just one simple thing that really helps. You know, knowing as you go around a track, you know what gear you should be in for a certain corner. You obviously don't know that on the first couple of laps. So yeah, have a look at that, and just, you know, feel free to go back and mute my voice if you want on repeat viewings, but go back and compare different parts of the tracks and things like that, and just have a look to see how it's done differently and how the lap time develops. Now, obviously, remember, I did say that you do make mistakes, so these are the sort of clean laps that I did. But remember that when you're doing it, you will make mistakes, and that's a good thing. You need to make those mistakes, because then you know you're pushing the car too much. You've gone too fast into a certain corner. You've braked a little bit too late. Then you know where the limit of the car is, and that helps you get quicker lap times, because you're able to just bring it back a little bit and go brake at the optimum point. And also remember that consistency is very good. It's much better to be doing consistent lap times rather than erratic ones. So if you're quite happily going along at 2:07, and you're able to just keep it on the track all of the time, that's fine, do that. It's when you're pushing for a better lap that you need to take a few more risks. But always start from that basis of having a good, solid, consistent lap time, and that's why earlier in the video that was part of the first session. I decided to just rein it in a little bit and start from a basis of getting consistent lap times, because that helps you in a racing situation. So as you can see, all of these lap times are starting to finish now. Basically, there's a 1.2 second difference between the best in each session, a bigger difference between the second lap, and an even bigger difference between the first lap. So basically what you need to think is that you need to imagine that there is a theoretical best lap time, one lap time that is absolutely best, and that is by taking every single corner of the track absolutely perfectly. So getting everything in the first 6 episodes absolutely perfect on every corner, and it's impossible to do it any better. Now that's impossible. That doesn't happen. We are all human. On every corner there will always be something that one driver could have done a little bit better. But you need to think that optimum lap time is there, and you need to get as close to it as you possibly can. That's the whole idea of racing in general. Now, as you get closer to that optimum lap time, your improvements will get smaller. So, as you saw there, I had something like a 4-second improvement just from first lap to the second lap. Then over the next 6 laps, because it was lap 6 by the time I managed to get the best lap, I had got another 2.5 seconds by getting 1 minute 6. And then it took me another, 10 laps, 12 laps, something like that, before I got my 2 minutes 5. So as you get closer to that optimum lap time, and as your times improve, the improvements that you make are smaller because you just do everything a little bit better, and it takes a lot. The differences that you can make in how you drive are a lot smaller, so it's a lot more on the finer details. So imagine that the optimum lap time is, say, 2 minutes 4 seconds on this track. I've got a 2 minutes 5 point whatever it was, 0.7. It might take me 50 laps before I get a 2 minutes 5, and then it might take me 100 laps before I get a 2 minutes 4.5, and then it might take me another 120 laps before I get a 2 minutes 4.2, but I'll never actually get that 2 minutes 4.0 because it's impossible. But the idea is to get as close to that as you possibly can by just doing it all as well as you can, and that's all you have to focus on, just doing all of the parts that we've learned about as well as you possibly can, and getting into a nice flow when you get around the circuit and trying to achieve perfection. It's not possible, but that's what you're aiming for when you are going for lap times around a racing track. So I hope this has helped you guys. I hope you get on there and try to improve your own lap times no matter what game you play. And thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.